General Anderson, welcome back to Mogadishu.
Thank you.
And we are very happy to have you because we wanted to have a discussions which are very important, especially the US-Somalia partnership, the security situation in Somalia, and as well as a lot of important questions that are on the mind of many Somalis today. And I'll start with the first question is, as a top military person for the US in Somalia, what is your assessment of the security situation in Somalia and in the wider region of the Horn of Africa?
That's a very interesting topic because we have seen some limited success in places in Somalia. We have seen al-Shabaab push back away from Mogadishu, but we've also seen that al-Shabaab is very resilient and continues to exist. We've also seen some limited success in the Golis Mountains with ISIS, where we have been able to work with the local forces there and keep them isolated and in the caves. The broader region, there's a lot of turbulence. Sudan is a tragedy. And seeing how that's going, it's not a military solution. It's going to take the people of Sudan to decide to stop fighting and external actors to actually assist them coming together. So there's a lot of issues within the region that could create instability. The key to this, though, is continuing to build on the progress that's been made, to continue to focus on the fight against the terrorists so that there can be stability, there can be investment, and that will lead to prosperity. So all of this, security and prosperity, are intertwined.
You have now described the security landscape in the region, which is having an impact as well on Somalia and the entire region. But how do you see, as top the US military officer, when it comes to the importance of Somalia for the US strategy in the region and in the entire continent?
Somalia sits on key terrain. The Horn of Africa is critically important to the commerce of the world, the waterways to the north, the entrance to much of East Africa is Somalia. So that alone makes it important. The stability here is equally important, and we saw what happened when there was instability in Somalia previously. The piracy created impacts to international commerce. Just the human tragedy that was occurring here created migration and displaced persons that then went to other countries. All of that creates instability, and that doesn't allow the development and the growth and the prosperity that the people of Somalia deserve. And so focusing on that alone is important. And that it creates, across multiple nations, stability in the Horn, which leads to prosperity for all. So for us, it's important to continue to drive towards that and to help Somalia move that way. But ultimately, it's got to be Somalia that takes care of Somalia, and that it's the Somalians' leadership and people who need to build that security and prosperity.
Yeah, and certainly there has been discussions recently about the US, Somalia partnership and on different phases, on different areas. And there are a lot of speculations that saying that the US is pulling out of Somalia. Is that true? Because many Somalis legitimately have concerns that the US is turning its back to them.
So interesting you say that, because I would say the United States has not turned its back on Somalia. We've been committed here for several years. We have engaged, I think, very constructively. The United States, and I was part of this previously when I was here, helped build the Danab, one of the most capable forces on the continent. I'm very proud of our engagement building that counterterrorism force. And we have completed that. We have built that force. And it is here and it's ready to be used for counterterrorism. But now it's up to Somalia to sustain that force, to continue that force, to build it and continue to make it effective going into the future and use it as it was designed to counter terrorism. So I don't think we're turning our backs on Somalia, but there are people in Washington and other parts of the country who said we've been here for several years. At what point does Somalia become independent and take care of these issues? And there's some people are weary of this because we've been dealing with terrorism in other parts of the world for many years. And they want to see Somalia take this on and move forward. there's also many other issues around the world that the U.S. is involved in security issues that we have to pay attention to as well. And so at some point, people are asking, when is Somalia going to take charge of this? And when can we turn it over to them? And so I don't think we've turned our backs on Somalia by any means. And if Somalia steps up and the government steps up and takes the lead on this, we will continue to be there because there is mutual interest. But if we can't see that and the political instability and the political infighting continues, then it's going to be very hard for us to continue to stay engaged.
You said about sustainability, and you said the commitments that you have got in other parts of the world. There are conflicts in Ukraine, there are conflicts in Middle East. And that takes me to the next question, which is how the resources that you have been allocating for AFRICOM, or the resources that AFRICOM has been receiving, is being affected by other conflicts because of the competing priorities, commitments that exist in other parts of the world. Because when you talk about sustainability, but also you don't need, to go out and say, look, you Somalis are not sustaining this operation, so we pull out. So how is those resources being affected that were meant for AFRICOM to work in Somalia or wider region in the continent?
So you're right. There are many other pressures for these resources. And there have been, we have looked at where they might be applied in other theaters for other issues. The reason we have been able to maintain these resources here in AFRICOM is that they've been continuing to fight terrorism, that we've been able to continue to focus them on ISIS in the north, that we've been able to continue to focus that fight together with our partners on al-Shabaab. As long as we can continue to show that progress against a mutual threat, which is terrorism, that is al-Qaeda, that is ISIS, then those resources I can justify and continue to use them. But if those resources are used elsewhere for other things and not for the terrorist fight, then I will have a hard time justifying keeping them here because of so many other demands. I believe in this mission, and I believe in standing here with you to counter terrorism, but we have to see that progress.
And when it comes to the point of progress, it's not only the military side.
Right.
It's also about the politics. It's about the governance. It's about how do we run our country, and how do we, deal with the domestic issues. And we also know that the political dysfunction also has a bearing or an effect on insecurity. And with the persistence of terror groups, getting the space or breathing space to continue their operations. Don't you think so?
Yes, and I think you bring up some really good points there. I was here active with the Special Operations Command in 2019 to 2021. And we worked with the Somali National Army and the Danab to move down the lower Shabelle River to make progress, taking all the way down to Mabrak. I come back to AFRICOM as the commander, and we're retaking the same territory again. This is what causes the frustration, because that territory was lost because somewhere the focus on terrorism was not there and was elsewhere. So being able to take that territory, that's part of the security. But what you said is then you have to be able to hold the territory, to bring governance, to bring justice, to be able to bring the stability necessary to allow prosperity to take place.
The governance.
All of that goes hand in hand. From the military, we help with the security piece. We need Somalia to bring the governance. We need Somalia to create the stability to allow the prosperity. And if that is the case, that we can have that stability, the United States is very interested in investing. This is what we do. We have one of the world's greatest economies, and we are willing to partner and invest where there is stability and prosperity. We can help build the security, but ultimately it has to be the host nation, the partner, that takes that and creates that independence. But that then opens the door to other partnership and economic growth.
And like you said, that political stability is very key.
It is.
When Somalis get their acts together and address their critical issues. But also, there is an important question. The U.S. operation is having, different, areas of intervention across the country. And U.S. support is Somalia with airstrikes. What about the reports of civilians being killed or injured in those operations?
We take this very seriously. We take great effort with our intelligence, our targeting, and our understanding to avoid harm to civilians. I don't think there's any nation in the world that does more and puts more resources in how we do this to mitigate civilian harm and civilian casualties. We take this very seriously. Any credible instance, we will investigate. And there have been times when we have made mistakes and we have provided reparations. But we also understand that we are taking great care in order to help another nation, and that ultimately, where are the civilian casualties coming from here? And how many civilian casualties has al-Shabaab created or ISIS? It's thousands.
Yeah.
And they are the ones that we need to look at. How are they harming the civilians? And not just in who they've killed, but what is the future that they have stopped or they have not allowed to develop? And so I understand the concern. I understand that that gets in the news about airstrikes, but I can assure you that we as U.S. forces take that very seriously.
Yeah. And has there been cases where AFRICOM has investigated when such kind of allegations have emerged and there have been accountability?
Yes, I have mentioned that already. We have done that, and we do that when there's a credible case. But also understand that al-Shabaab is very willing to make false accusations, and they do this almost every single time. And so we do investigate it, but we make sure that it is credible.
I'd like to ask about Somaliland. You and other AFRICOM officials have visited Somaliland several times. Does the U.S. have a plan to build a base there in Somaliland?
There's no plans to build a base in Somaliland.
Okay. Well, the U.S. recognized Somaliland because this is one of the questions that is among the Somalis asking themselves.
U.S. policy is and remains the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Federal Republic of Somalia. That has not changed.
General Anderson, you are being watched by millions of Somalis inside Somalia and outside the country. What is your message to them? What would you tell them today as the top commander of the U.S. for Africa who is visiting in Mogadishu?
I think my message is we are committed to helping nations become more prosperous and secure. But we need a willing partner that is willing to focus on our mutual interests. But the people of Somalia deserve prosperity and stability. They deserve that security. But I can only bring a piece of it. It has to be with the leadership of the government of Somalia. And when we can do that and we can focus on the common threat, we can work together and create that prosperity. But ultimately, it has to be the people of Somalia who want it, the government of Somalia who wants it, and then they can provide that. And the United States has and will continue to help those who are willing to help themselves.
General Anderson, thank you very much for joining us. And we appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and give the message to the people of Somalia.
I very much appreciate it. And I very much appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. I have been committed here for several years, and it is important to me personally, but ultimately we have to do what's right for each of our nations. And ultimately I want to see success for both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.